Ever just stop and wonder, what is actually going on inside my head? Well, for centuries, that's exactly what we've been trying to figure out, to map the human mind. So today, we're going to take a super quick tour of that incredible journey and look at the big ideas that completely changed how we see ourselves.
It really all boils down to this one question, which is so simple but also incredibly deep. Why do you do the things you do? Why do you have certain habits or fears or even desires? This is the fundamental mystery that the entire field of psychology is trying to solve.
And just so you know, this isn't some settled science with one easy answer. Nope, it's actually a huge, ongoing debate, this great conversation that's been going on for over 100 years, with some of the most brilliant minds offering completely different maps of our inner world.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start way back in the early 1900s, diving deep into the hidden world of psychoanalysis. Then we'll watch as the pendulum swings completely the other way with behaviorism. After that, a much more optimistic view pops up with humanistic psychology before we finally land on the cognitive revolution, which started to see the mind as, well, kind of like a computer. Okay, our first stop, we're starting with the guy who really first tried to chart the deep, dark waters of the mind, Sigmund Freud and his theory of psychoanalysis.
Now, the main idea here was pretty wild for its time. Freud basically said that we are not the masters of our own minds. Instead, he argued that we're driven by this huge hidden part of ourselves, the unconscious, and it's filled with desires and memories, a lot of them from way back in our childhood.
And Freud's famous iceberg metaphor, it just nails this idea perfectly. That little tip of the iceberg that you can see above the water, that's your conscious mind. Everything you're aware of right now. But that massive, invisible chunk underneath, that's the unconscious. And according to Freud, it's what's really steering the ship.
So, in this hidden world, Freud laid out some key ideas. He talked about how our childhood experiences have this lasting power, and about the clever defense mechanisms our minds use to protect us from feeling anxious. He also described this constant battle going on inside us. Our primal urges, which he called the id, are in a constant tug-of-war with our moral conscience, the superego. And the ego, that's the referee, just trying to keep the peace.
It's a really fascinating picture of the mind, isn't it? But it led to one giant problem for the next wave of psychologists. If the most important stuff is hidden deep down in the unconscious, how in the world do you study it scientifically? How can you prove any of it?
And that one question, that's what sparked a revolution. A whole new group of psychologists got really frustrated with theories about things they couldn't see or measure. They wanted cold, hard data, and that gave rise to behaviorism. This chart really shows you just how dramatic that shift was. I mean, it was a total 180. Psychology went from digging around in the internal, unconscious mind to focusing only on external, observable behavior. The method changed from just thinking about things to running scientific experiments. The behaviorists basically slammed the door on the unconscious mind, saying, look, it's a black box. We can't know what's in there, so let's only study what we can actually see.
For a behaviorist, it's simple. You are a product of your environment. That's it. You're not driven by hidden desires. You are shaped by rewards and punishments. Your entire personality, all your habits, your fears, they're all just responses you've learned from the world around you.
And this famous and, frankly, kind of chilling quote from John Watson, one of the fathers of behaviorism, just perfectly sums up this belief. It's the ultimate nurture over nature statement. To a behaviorist, a person is basically a blank slate, and experience writes the story.
So behaviorists figured out there are two main ways we learn all this stuff. First, you've got classical conditioning. Think of Pavlov's dogs, who learned to associate a bell with getting food. And then there's operant conditioning, which was B.F. Skinner's big thing. This is where our actions are shaped by what happens next. If we get a reward, we do it again. If we get punished, we avoid it. It's the basic idea behind everything from training your dog to the point systems in video games.
But a lot of people started to feel like this view was also missing something. I mean, are we just puppets controlled by our unconscious, or are we just robots programmed by our environment? A new movement, sometimes called the Third Force, came along to shout no. This was humanistic psychology. Humanistic psychologists, like Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, completely rejected what they saw as the pessimistic view of Freud and the robotic view of the behaviorists. They made the case that we aren't just a jumble of inner conflicts or learned behaviors. We are human beings driven by a powerful need for growth, for meaning, and to become our best selves. This quote from Maslow really gets to the heart of it.
He truly believed that every single person has this built-in desire to become the absolute best version of themselves, to reach their full, unique potential. It's a really optimistic and empowering way to look at people, right?
So this school of thought put all the focus on our positive side. Humanists believed that people are basically good, that we have free will to make our own choices, and that what it feels like to be you, your own unique, conscious experience, is what really matters most.
Now, as inspiring as all that was, it still didn't have the scientific proof that a lot of researchers were looking for. Then, in the 1960s, a new piece of technology came along that gave psychologists a whole new way to think about the mind scientifically. And that technology was the computer. This kicked off the cognitive revolution.
The cognitive revolution basically cracked open that black box that behaviorism had sealed shut. Psychologists started saying, hang on a second, we can scientifically study what's happening inside the mind. We can actually study thinking itself.
And the big metaphor that unlocked it all was the computer. All of a sudden, the mind wasn't some dark, mysterious iceberg anymore. It was an information processing system. It takes in information, that's the input. It processes that information using mental software like memory and logic, and then it produces a behavior, that's the output. This model just blew the doors wide open. Psychologists could now design experiments to explore all kinds of things. How we create memories, how we tackle complicated problems, the incredible way we learn language, and even all the little mental shortcuts and biases that mess with our decision-making. This is the work that led directly to things like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which helps millions of people by changing their thought patterns.
Okay, so we have just zipped through 4 massive schools of thought. But listen, this isn't just a history lesson. Each one of these theories gives you a really valuable tool for understanding the most complicated thing you'll ever have to deal with, yourself.
Think of them as different lenses you can look through. The psychoanalytic lens asks you to think about how your past might still be influencing you today. The behaviorist lens has you look around and spot the triggers and rewards in your life that are driving your habits. The humanistic lens makes you ask what you really need to do to grow and feel fulfilled. And the cognitive lens helps you zoom in on the specific thought patterns that are creating your feelings.
You can see how each perspective gives us a different piece of the puzzle, right? None of them has the whole map of the mind on its own. And really, modern psychology mixes and matches ideas from all of them. So the real question isn't which one is right, it's, as you go about your own life, which combination of these ideas helps you see yourself most clearly?